question. I have all these up on the screen too, I believe. But the first one is this. What, this question, I don't know who wrote this. If it was one of you, I love you. Because my answer to these, I went into my office and I just quick fired all the answers to these, like the first thing that came to my head. That's what I'm going to do with this first one. All right, so it says, what are good, small boundaries to have in place? My answer to that is none. Don't have small boundaries, have really big boundaries. Like, okay, who has a dog in here? Okay. Now let's just put like humanity is like the most athletic, rebellious dog you've ever seen. Like a husky. Would you, if you bought like huskies they need to run. Where is Alyssa still in here? Alyssa. I know, you see, like, it's dark. No. But Ben and Alyssa have a husky. You know what that husky does a lot? It runs away. So if you bought a husky, would you put like a tiny little 6-inch fence in your backyard and say, stay in the boundaries, buddy? Don't run past them. No, why? That's dumb. Because just like a dog wants to run, we like to sin. And we also happen to like sex and touching and kissing and all those things. Y'all weren't in here last week. This front row right here, they went, well, Paris was gone, but Esther and Mira, they went back there because they were scared. I know I kind of forced you guys to, but they're in for it this week. But don't have small boundaries, in all seriousness. Have big boundaries. There's a lot of questions about boundaries. What would you say to that? Just don't have small boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably talk about like some good big boundaries. I mean, we obviously know what the main boundary is, but
the last question is, what are examples of boundaries?
Okay, so wait.
But this next one was another good one that I really like too. I don't know which one of you wrote this, but it was, how do you know when God is telling you to let a person go? Well, they said, how do you know when God is telling you to let a girl, and I put person, go? The answer to that is God is telling you to let them go because you're asking the question. Like, if you're asking the question of, like, should I dump her? Like, I don't know if we're, yes. If you're asking that question, like, she's not the one, in all seriousness, what would you say?
I just think maybe if they're not
I don't have a serious
bringing you
answer for
closer
that.
to Jesus, and they're not
That's really
bringing you
spiritual.
back to Him. I mean, I guess I have to be spiritual. But I guess if they're not encouraging you, jeez.
That's what I get for not drinking.
This is what you get for drinking 3
What
ingredients
the-
water.
She did that on purpose. She wanted to touch me.
Do I finish or do I just wait until you're done making a scene? Anyways, yeah, I think if they're not encouraging you to be closer to Jesus, then they're probably not a good match. To be kind of spiritual, it's also kind of simple. Like if they're like, no, I don't want to go to church tonight with you, then ditch them and then don't go back.
Yeah, if you have to like beg them to come to church, they're not the one. What? Oh. If you have to beg her to go to church or him to go to church, they're definitely not the one. I feel like that's like guys, sorry dudes in the room, but for whatever reason, usually the girl in high school, and it's backwards. Usually it's the girl who kind of tends to take the lead. Not in our relationship. I had to beg her to come to church. She's on board.
No. I never had to beg you to church. You didn't either, though. Like, you just were always there. So, I don't know, maybe just, girls, set your standards high. Like, if they're not just going without you asking, then you probably shouldn't be,
Yeah. All right. Now into kind of the real questions. How do you avoid building a foundation with someone that you don't want to while still loving them with God's intent?
Does that mean, like, be
So-
friends with them but not, like, interact?
I think so. So I would say, this is going back to, I think, week 2. I would say, how do you avoid building a foundation with someone that you don't want to? To answer that question, you should never build a foundation with anybody. The foundation is what you build by yourself in the season of singleness that we talked about. And simultaneously, like if you're dating someone, we talked about this, you can still be dating someone but build a foundation on your own, because until they have a ring on it, they're not yours forever. And so I would never, ever attempt to while you're dating someone, build a foundation with anybody, because that's really dangerous. Because if you're setting a foundation that is, okay, like imagine you're building a foundation with bricks, and you're going, okay, this is me, this is her, this is me, this is her, this is me, this is her, this is me. What happens if she leaves or he leaves? Then you're missing half your foundation. And you're going to have a really, really terrible time trying to have relationships and have a solid foundation, because half of what you built was based on a person. That's why, and Peter talks about Christ even being the cornerstone. Like Christ needs to be, the only person we build a foundation with is Jesus Christ. And you build a relationship with him, and you develop a relationship with him, and you build upon that. Like, once you get above the foundation, that's where like we talked about the house analogy. If you were here, if you weren't, go back and listen to it in week 2. But we start talking about, like, the foundation is you and Jesus, and then above that is people. But I wouldn't build the foundation. I feel like this question might be, though, like, maybe you have a person in your life that you're like, I don't think this is who I want to build a foundation with. And how do you still love them with God's intent? You love them, and you tell them, hey, you're not my boo. Like, you're not the one.
I think just what I imagine this question is like maybe there's like a guy and he's like helping a girl out, but he doesn't necessarily like have an interest in her, but he's just trying to, like, you know, be a good Christian and be loving and stuff. And I don't know, I guess my advice would probably be, if that's the situation, like setting boundaries with them, or just like with yourself. Like, I'm not gonna go and meet them in the middle of the night at McDonald's because they need to talk, because that kind of gives the wrong idea. Like, you're here for me when nobody else was. If it's a girl, anyway. I mean, some girls are kind of dramatic. So,
Most.
I guess maybe not all of them are, but I think majority of them.
Who just said that? Somebody just said that. Oh gosh, who was it? It was my friend Andrew. This was hilarious. I said, that's not my youth group. He was teaching a youth ministry class, and we were in class, and he said, listen, in my youth ministry, 9 out of 10 times the problems are the females. And I was like, oh. I said, 9 out of 10 problem, like, sure, you got like Esther and me doing TikToks in the front row during service and stuff. But that's only 2 out of 10. You know, most of the time it's like Malachi and Ari running their mouths. I know that's the problem. It's because then you distract more people. It's Micah. Where's Micah? What? I'm coming at you, Micah, because when they did a tunnel in the back,